Thank you for turning to page 121. Today we're going to take a look at equipping your traveler. You've decided to start your campaign, you've picked where it's going to be, you've rolled up your characters. We have to equip these guys. How are they coming out of their character creation? What equipment are they going to have? And what's your game going to be like? So I'm just going to show the process I use and recently used for developing my current traveler campaign. And information is going to come out of the 2022 update rulebook. And I'm going to show why this is fine for starting out your traveler campaign, and you want to get the supply catalog and everything else down the line. So today on page 121, equipping your travelers. Equipping your travelers. Once again, we turn to a new book that's becoming an old friend fast for me, the Core Rulebook 20 update of 2022. I think Mongoose hit it out of the park with this particular book. We're going to go to the equipment page, which is page 97, and we're going to take a look. Now, your travelers are going to probably come out of character creation, their careers. They're probably going to come out with some equipment. They're going to have possibly some type of weapon, possibly a sword, that kind of thing, and that's fine. Seth Skorskowski did a nice video in character creation about using the maximum dollars that you get for your weapon. So if you get a weapon that's worth, $10,000 credits, and you buy the weapon with that, and it's only 3,000. Well, then you can use the other 7,000 for upgrades to the weapon. I also allow that to be for ammo or power packs, that kind of thing. So you want to go ahead and give the travelers credit for whatever it is that they've mustered out with. The other thing about Traveler is they didn't muster out without clothing. So they have clothing. So now it's up to you as the GM to decide what that clothing makes, what it is. So is it just coveralls that they're walking around in? Is it their uniform from their career? Is it, if they were a noble, is it nice finery? You have to decide that, because these are going to be incidentals that the travelers are going to be starting with. They're not just going to be starting with nothing. Now, don't bury yourself in those details. You don't have to worry about what everybody's change of clothes are for day to day. That kind of takes care of itself as you go along. I'm going to go into the ship's locker in a little bit when we talk about mustering out with the ship, and we're going to discuss that as well. So for the equipment, we've got the ability to equip your travelers, and we've got the standard of living, which is a pretty neat little chart. Although I go ahead and I let my travelers kind of determine that for themselves. So the very first thing you're going to look at least the very first thing I look at each time, is armor. What kind of armor are my travelers going to be mustering out with, starting their careers with? My old favorite in the old books was Jack. I used to love everybody walking around in Jack. I thought it was really cool. Mesh is also a favorite. Cloth seems to be particularly favorable in this edition of Traveler. And then you've got Reflect, which is lasers only, or really good against lasers only. A Blathiv, which is only really good against lasers. Combat armor, and vac suit. And you're saying, well, wait, there's a lot more in Mongoose Traveler. The Central Supply Catalog has a bunch, as well as some of the JTAS, Journal of Travelers Aid Society books. And you're absolutely right. One of the main things that I'm kind of focusing on is narrowing my focus. I don't want to go to those other books immediately. I certainly went through those books and read them over to make some decisions as far as what I was going to be equipping the guys with. But then the more I looked at it, the more I thought, well, my focus is way too broad right now. I have everything up to psionic armor. I don't need to learn about psionic armor right now. Absolutely, I read the psionic armor, and I read Traveler for fun. In addition to playing it, I find it very enjoyable to just sit with the books and read them. So absolutely, I'm going to read up on that stuff, but I don't need to know every little bit about the psionic armor if it's not going to be in my game. So what I do is I narrow my focus to what my travelers are going to be equipped with, and that helps me to just focus on what they'll have. So I take a look at Jack, which is only +1 protection. As you remember, +1 protection equals -1 damage. So if this person wearing Jack were to get hit for 6 points of damage, they would take 1 point off, and it would be 5 damage. So you're looking there and you're thinking, well, cloth. Okay, let's go cloth +8. Yeah, that's good. It's only tech level 10, 3 kilograms, and only costs 500 credits. So now the next question becomes the 500 credits. Did they have this coming out of the service, or is this something that they upgraded once they left? That's really up to the individual GM. I have no problem with the starting travelers having some form of armor. When they upgrade, of course, they pay for that out of their credits. But for me, they can start out with some form of armor. So, okay, I'm looking at +8 protection cloth, and I'm thinking, okay, that's kind of a winner. It's tech level 10. Oh, my campaign is starting out in a tech level 5 world that's got a Class C starport. Okay, how come they have 10? Well, these guys worked on other worlds, and they picked it up along the way. And I thought, okay, well, that's not a bad way. But then as I started developing my encounters for my campaign, and I probably am going to do an overview of the first part of the campaign that I'm running right now. Unfortunately, what I thought would be a one-nighter is turned into a three-nighter, and the third night has been postponed due to a couple of COVID exposures. So that's why I'm not as far along in the campaign as I had hoped I would be. We also played some D&D in there. But okay, back to my point. I'm cloth armor +8. Okay, so that'll take 8 points of damage away. And then I started looking at tech level 5 weaponry, and I went, oh, well, shotguns, they do like 4d6 damage. That's pretty good. Let's take a look at the weaponry as long as I'm in this topic. Because let's face it, we go to armor and weaponry first, at least I do, and then I look at all the other goodies. Okay, come on, weapons. There we are. We go to melee weapons, which is not my focus right at the moment. I'm going to go to slug throwers. Okay, tech level 5 slug thrower. Auto pistol. Okay. 3d3 -3. Okay, that's kind of interesting. A body pistol. A little higher tech, but let's go to a revolver. 3d3 -3. Okay, let's get to an auto rifle. It's tech level 6. Wouldn't be impossible to have 3d6. That's pretty good damage. A regular rifle would be pretty common. 3d6. A shotgun. 4d. Okay, so I'm looking at the tech levels and I'm going, okay, well, these are in the zone of what I want. That's kind of interesting. But then I went, wait a minute. I'm giving them -8 damage. So if I have a weapon that fires 2 die damage, let's say it's a body pistol, 2 die damage, 2d6 average is 7. I'm -8. So I'll take no damage from getting shot from that. My travelers will take no damage from being shot by that. And I went, oh, wait a minute. Okay, that's a problem. So then I went back to my armor check, and I looked at cloth tech level 7, -5, the +5 bonus, so -5 damage. And I thought, okay, that might be more in line. So I'm going to go ahead and give them tech level 7 cloth armor, which is going to be +5 protection. They'll at least take some damage from a 2-die weapon, and then possibly considerable from a 3-die rifle. So that kind of solved that problem. So I found right away, okay, I don't want them walking around in the tech level 10 cloth. I want them in tech level 7. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now let's take a look at their slug throwers. One of my players did muster out with a weapon, and he chose a Gauss Pistol. It's a tech level 13. He was aboard. He was in the Imperial Navy, so tech level 13 is not a problem. 3-die damage, magazine worth 40 shots. He's got AP3, which takes away, as we know, takes 3 off of any kind of armor bonus, and auto 2 is the firing. So I'm taking a look at this, and I'm going, okay, this is pretty good. He's going to be on a tech level 5 world, and he's going to be walking around with a tech level 13 pistol. Another one of my players, when they mustered out with a lot of money. So he wanted to go to energy weapons. He mustered out with over 100,000. Rolled really well. We don't want to go to the heavy weapons. I must have gone, okay. The heavy weapons, I did go to, there we are, energy weapons. He mustered out and he bought himself a laser carbine, which is 4-die damage. He went with laser pistol, tech level 9, 20-meter range, 3-die damage. Cost him 2,000 credits. Magazine is 100 shots, and he bought extra magazines. So he actually bought this coming out of the service. So we had a couple of good weapons, and my other guy ended up taking, he bought a Gauss pistol himself. So we've got some pretty good weaponry. We're on a tech level 5 planet. We're up against, for the moment, I'm calling them revolutionaries. I'll explain the story arc in another video. But again, equipping my travelers, I have to be sure that what I have is going to balance what they have. So they have pretty powerful slug throwers. They're going to be doing a lot of damage. Well, the way a GM makes up for that is easy. Numbers. They only have 3 people in their group. So anytime I want a firefight encounter to be dangerous for them, I just put more guys out there with less powerful weapons. But numbers makes up for the deficiency of the weapons. So now I've got the weapons and the armor settled, which is pretty good. Now I'm going to take a look at augments. This hasn't happened yet. We're not going to go into any kind of augments. Next thing we'll go is communications. And as the GM coming out of character creation and everything, I ruled that they all had a comm dot. Comm dots are cheap. They're only 10 credits. It's a tiny microphone. You just kind of put on your jaw and you can go ahead and communicate. I gave them tech level 10. Tech level 10 comm dot. I decided that would be standard issue for where they are in the character creation, where they physically were living and operating as their travelers before they mustered out. So they all got comm dots automatically. We got to computers and software, but I haven't done anything with that yet. And when I explain the campaign, you'll understand why. Right now, it's kind of I'm trying to emulate the first Die Hard movie, kind of, with the travelers. They're on their way to getting their ship, but a problem has popped up. So now we go to medical and care supplies. And you're going, okay, now wait a minute. I'm going to really be diving into this, and it's going to have a lot. Well, again, this is something I'm not going to dive into yet. Because of the scenario I'm running, the travelers are starting out with the weapons on their hips and the clothing on their back. They're there to pick up the scout ship that one of the scout, the player that chose scout, he did get a ship in mustering out. They're there to pick up the ship, but some revolutionaries have attacked the Class C starport, which is outside the Imperium, where they're picking up the ship, and I'll explain the reasons why this is happening when I do the video on that. But I decided that I wasn't even going to worry about medical and care supplies, simply because they wouldn't have them with them. They're just walking around the starbase when all this happens. Same with sensors. Now, you want to be careful with sensors, especially some of these sensors. You can end up with stuff where the player characters can detect a lot of problems before they walk into them. In other words, if they have a neural activity sensor, they can scan the area around them and go, oh, this guy's hiding behind some crates over here. So you kind of want to be careful with an NAS. Granted, it's a tech level 15 and it's 35,000 credits, but that's not beyond most travelers, even at this start. So you want to be careful with letting them have any kind of access to that. You can simply say, well, there's none available here in this particular planet. It's a tech level 12 planet. You don't have it. So now I go to survival gear and supplies. And again, because my campaign, I started my campaign out intentionally where they wouldn't have to pick up a lot of this gear simply because they haven't gotten to that point in the campaign. So coming back to, I'm going to take a look at the next page. Yep. I want to take a look at the medical supplies again. And you're going to say, well, wait a minute. They might have some medical supplies on them. Here we go. It wouldn't be out of the question for them to have some stuff, just a med kit with them or something. And that's fine. If one of my travelers actually had the foresight to say, hey, you know what? I want to buy a med kit, and it's going to be one that I can carry around in a Velcro pouch on my hip, I would have said, fine. None of them did that. So they don't have a med kit with them. So the idea is that they are currently getting across the starport as it's under attack by these revolutionaries. They're trying to get to the ship that is going to be theirs, courtesy of the Scout Service. But again, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I'm going to do a video talking about where I am with the campaign. That video will be dropping sometime after we play the next leg of the campaign, and that's scheduled to happen Tuesday. It's scheduled to happen a couple of days after this video happens. So again, I don't have any stuff there. So now, okay, I mentioned a few times, here's melee weapons. If one of my guys wants to come out with a dagger of some kind, I won't let it look like an orc made it. That's fine. Any kind of dagger is fine, or any kind of stick or whatever they want to walk around with and that kind of thing, that's fine. They can pick that up, and the cost is nominal on most of this stuff. So now we're talking about the ship's locker. The ship's locker, oh, what a great thing. First off, when the ship that they're getting that they're struggling to get to is, of course, just a scout courier, 100-ton displacement. So one of the first things I had to decide was how I was going to set up that ship. And my decision was, it has a turret. Am I going to give them a weapon or not? And I decided, yes. I know my players, they're not going to be real keen on the idea of flying around the galaxy completely unarmed for a ship-to-ship encounter. So yes, I went ahead and I said that this one they're getting as a mustering out benefit already has a laser. Now, it'll get damaged, they'll improve it, whatever. That's down the line. For the beginning of the campaign, they are going to have a 100-ton displacement scout ship with a laser turret. So I thought that was a good thing to start them with. Again, I know my players, they're not going to want to fly around in an unarmed vessel. So now the next step became to decide what was in the ship. And that's where your ship's locker comes in. Ship's locker is talked about throughout this book, and it's a pretty cool concept. I like the idea of a ship's locker. Basically, it's where the incidentals are. Do you need a meta kit? It might be in the ship's locker. If you don't have a designated sick bay, it's in the ship's locker. Do you need some grenades? There might be some in the ship's locker. You can have your players stock the ship's locker. But the idea behind the ship's locker is you don't put every single detail of every single thing that they have in the on the sheets. They have a ship's locker. So some ordinary stuff like changes of clothes, grav boots, that sort of thing you can just have as part of the ship. If they're traveling aboard a ship, maybe they have access to grav boots as part of their passage. That's really up to you. For me, with the scout ship being given as a mustering out benefit, it's also coming with a total of 4 vac suits. These are tech level 12 vac suits, no real bells and whistles on them, but it would be enough to accommodate all the people that would normally crew this vessel. In my case, there's only going to be 3, so there's a spare vac suit. So I'm not charging them for that. I'm counting that as part of the ship's locker. I don't consider that extravagant in my part. I consider that normal business. Now, if they wanted to say, hey, I just looked around in my ship's locker and I found some light intensifier goggles, I'm going to put those on. Well, no, you don't have those. I'm sorry. That's a very specific item. It's not in there. Your bioscanner, actually, because it's a scout ship, you might have an old bioscanner in there, but I might make it an old model where it tends to break down or have to be repaired a lot to kind of nudge the players to buy a new one. So that's really what I have in mind when I'm going ahead and I'm setting up my campaign and the first few adventures, is I let them find out what they need. And if something is, quote, ordinary, unquote, then I just say, okay, it's in the ship's locker, or fine, you have your comm dot with you. You don't have to tell me every time you leave the ship, I've got my comm dot. You have it. So I'm kind of easy with that, and I actually find that fits the play style that we're used to pretty well. I don't like the idea of weapons and armor in Traveler being like magic items in D&D. They shouldn't feel like that, should never feel like that. This should be business as usual. You should be buying them, acquiring them, maintaining them, replacing them. That's the whole idea of Traveler. It's kind of like, our real life, except we're out in space. So that's how I approached it, and that's how I have approached it in the past. I narrowed my focus. I didn't read up on hostile environment vac suits. I read up on the base vac suit. And as it turned out, battle dress. Battle dress is actually going to come in because the Marines, there's a Marine base, an Imperial Marine base on the planet, and so some Marines with battle dress are coming in. But again, when I recap the adventure, and I'm going to do that after we play the last part, whenever that's going to be, when I recap that, I'll do a video on that, and I'll recap the first couple legs of the adventure and explain what we did and what choices the players made. Because the choices regarding battle dress, they don't have the battle dress. These will be non-player characters that will have the battle dress. But what happens with the battle dress can be affected by some of their decisions. So that's really what I had in mind with this video, was just telling you my thought process in starting out, equipping my characters, and what I do and don't worry about beginning. Now that I've got them mustered out, I've got them on the planet, we've run a game or two, they know what their situation is. Now as we get them aboard the ship and they leave the planet, that's when I'm going to worry more about pulling into the central supply catalog and looking at some of the more exotic stuff, or just more expanded basic stuff. Again, I'm not going to worry about that until we're aboard the ship and on our way. So that's just how I'm doing it. How you do it, hey, whatever works for you, but I find narrowing my focus really helps. Reading up only what's on the character sheets or what my bad guys are going to have at hand helps me narrow my focus and lets me squeeze the most I can out of the equipment that's available. So that's it for today on page 121. I hope you liked it. If you did, please like and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. I have a Patreon going. Please remember that. I am really on a push for subscribers right now. I'm a little over 700, and I'm really pushing for that magic 1,000 so that YouTube actually stops and looks at me. So if you've been on the fence, I'd appreciate if you kind of just subscribed and just let me be in your subscription and help me out a little bit. So that's all I've got to say today on page 121. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.